TRW, looking again at AHP here, part of the Avec Regret series. This video is going to be all about the rules issue I have. It starts on the train effects table. Guess it has to do with fire and perhaps melee. No, actually melee as well. This is, I guess, all about rules wording, mechanics, design, development. I guess by way of introduction, I still cannot get enough of these games. They're just great, but by the same token, I've tried separately. That is, I've tried since the last time I played to figure out this issue. Hasn't worked, so I'm going to give it one more try and see if I can walk it through piece by piece and figure this out. I believe, well, hang on. So again, original design by Ben Hull, which means that I absolutely believe and trust that there is that the underlying rule, the underlying design is solid. Florent Coupeau has done a just great job continuing the original design that Ben Hull did. So Florent Coupeau has grown this into the AIR series. Cannot say enough good things about their work and these games. So that tells me that it's a real interpretations problem, and I feel like I just don't understand what is intended by this. If I understood what was intended, then I could feel comfortable making a decision. So I'm going to walk through, and by the way, like I said, when I tried to figure this out, since the last time I played, I went back, I checked, this starts, well, it starts with Paris is worth a mass, which I looked at those rules too. Goes through Newport 1600, which has dunes, and it goes all the way through. Going back and looking at older iterations did not help. It's either it's the same correct design that I'm just not getting from the beginning, or it's the same problem from the beginning, but that didn't help. So going back did not help. So, all right. So we start with the train effects table, and we have, so we're going to talk about dunes, although I see this same problem might be with slopes. But anyways, let's start with dunes because this is where I discovered it. So, in the English, a unit, all right, let's grab a unit. All right, here's a unit. A unit, so this is dunes here. A unit in this type of hex, dunes, in this case, benefits from a +1 DRM. Okay, so however this turns out, it has to be a benefit to this unit, the unit that's in the terrain. Okay, because before I was going for an interpretation that seemed to work, except that it was not always a benefit. This makes it sound like it is always a benefit for the unit that's in this terrain. All right, +1 DRM in fire and melee, fire/melee, which I think we can say is fire and melee, and in attack/defense. All right. The wording, frankly, looks like a mess to me, but let's try to figure out it, even if it makes sense when we lay it out. Now, let me say another thing. I went back, or I took the time, I should say. I took the time to look really closely at the original French. And this does not appear to be a translation problem to English, because the English translation in this case looks like it's more or less an exact word-for-word translation. That's not the case when we get to slope, by the way. Slope, it's a bad translation, and it causes problems. But anyways, here with dunes, it looks like it's a word-for-word translation, so it's not the English translation. All right, so unit in this terrain. So now let's do fire combat. So here's an attacker. The game doesn't really have attacker, okay, but a fire and a target. Okay. So here's the problem. So this unit benefits from a +1. So let's just put that there, maybe. All right, so it benefits from a +1. Okay, in fire. Okay, so the problem is, okay, and then we go to the fire table modifiers. It has +/- terrain occupied by the target. That tells me that it's always the terrain of the target, or the terrain of the target hex, that matters. It may be a plus and it may be a minus. Okay, so now I'm trying to see if this game has any minuses. This game does not have any minuses, but I think in other games in the series there are minuses. But in this game, it looks like they're all pluses, which doesn't help, by the way. So here we go. So we let's just say we roll. That's not a good one. Let's say we roll let's use kind of an average 6 maybe. I guess 5 would be average. Okay. So, which is good because his fire value is 5. So he needs to get equal to or better than his fire value. I took 5 as an average, but actually his fire value is 5. He needs a 5 or better to get a hit. Now, if I add 1 to a 6, that means that the target needs to pass his morale check 8 + 1, because you added 1 to the die roll, right? And to pass, he needs to roll equal to or less than his morale. So giving him a +1 is not a benefit, it's a penalty. And it clearly says the unit benefits from a +1 DRM. So, what am I missing here? 5, 6, which, by the way, it says in fire resolution. All right, I'll just talk this through. Rolls 1d10, applies any of the following potential cumulative modifiers. Let's say that there are none but terrain. Terrain is +1. As a matter of fact, I'll put it over here, actually, because it's applied to the fire's die roll. So instead of a 5, as a matter of fact, let's even make it a 4, right? So a 4 without the +1 would be a miss, because it's not equal to or greater than his fire value. Greater than or equal to this value. I'm reading from the rules. You add a +1 because the target's in dunes. It goes to 5. Now it is a hit. And now the target has to pass. That is clearly worse. That's making it easier for the fire to hit the targets in the dunes, which makes no sense. And melee, by the way, melee is exactly the same thing. So let's start over. The problem with melee, because it's the exact same, +1, right? In melee, just to make it clear, the attacker rolls the die. All right, so let's say they roll an average 5. Okay. There is no defender rolling. These are not counter rolls. So it's not like he is going to roll and he adds 1 and that's a benefit. No, the attacker is rolling on 1 melee results table. And again, it is plus defender terrain. Die modifiers in melee. Plus defender terrain. Now, here's what I was saying before. The melee, here. All right, just to make this very clear, this is what I've talked about before. Now I'm showing it. There's one melee results table. Clearly, the higher the value, the worse it is for the defender. It's the exact same situation. The defender is in dunes in melee, and I'm adding one to the die roll, which is clearly making it worse. If you look, the higher the value, the less the attacker result in severity, and the higher the severity of the defender's result. It's clearly worse for the defender. Now somebody might say, well, it's because of the terrain. No, the rules say it benefits the defender. It benefits the defender. That's what the rules say. So I already tried to justify what the designer, again, what is intended here. Why is this making, well, it just doesn't work. Whether you want to say that a defender is worse off in terrain defending in melee or better off in terrain. I mean, clearly clearly in loss terms, it's better in, this is rough terrain. This is rough terrain. This is broken terrain. So clearly they're better off with respect to losses in kind of a raw sense. So what on earth is intended here? I have no idea. And there I've shown for myself clearly, again, it's backwards. And it's backwards in fire and melee. And here's another problem. Because it has this stupid in attack and defense. What does that mean? What does in attack and defense mean? Again, defender, I'm trying to think. A defender is never rolling. Now again, you might say, oh, it applies to the morale check. Okay, no, the rules clearly spell out a morale check is never modified by anything but a commander being present or the difference on the fire roll. There's never any terrain modifier to a morale check. That isn't anywhere else in the design. That would make sense, by the way, that, right? Or did I even get that wrong? No, that would be, nope, that would be, yeah, I know. This is another problem with the design. Sometimes it's equal to or higher, and sometimes it's equal to or less. So you want equal to or less to pass your morale. Actually, the plus DRM for the defender in his morale check is not good either. So no, I had that wrong. That's not good for the defense. So it doesn't even work for the morale checks. Man, I'm at a loss. See, you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to find any permutation that makes any sense. And in fact, there's nothing that makes sense. There's nothing that makes sense. The defender should get a -1. That would clearly, and I know, that's why I said I went back and checked. It's not like this is a typo. It's been this way from the very beginning. So how could it have gone this far and nobody noticed? Okay, if it's -1, if the defender gets a -1, which by the way is not the defender getting a -1, it's the attacker getting a -1. It's the attacker attacking into the dunes terrain that should get a -1, right? Because that makes fire less severe, and that makes melee, a little bit worse for the attacker, a little bit better for the defender. That just makes sense, because talk about melee. Now that I'm zoomed in, you can see what a absolutely beautiful game it is. And other than this one problem, it is beautiful in play too. Look, if the attacker is coming through clear and open terrain, and the defender is in dunes, clearly the attacker is at a disadvantage because he's approaching completely exposed. The defender is clearly not nearly as exposed. Clearly, at least relatively speaking, the attacker should be taking more losses. I don't know how else to square this. And again, what does it mean in defense? So, by the way, let's switch it around. So here the defender, the defender, now let's switch it around. This unit is attacking melee out of, that wouldn't, what? I don't even know what attack/defense means. It just doesn't compute for me. I'm sorry. And it doesn't, in the French, it's attack defense. Doesn't help. Again, I'm looking at it again. It's almost exactly a word for word translation. A unit in a situation where it is on a Dunes hex gets a bonus of +1, which, by the way, bonus is misleading, of +1 in fire/melee and in attack/defense. It doesn't help. Doesn't help. Now let's talk about slope. All right, I'm not going to pull out another map, but let's pretend that this is not dunes. Let's pretend this is higher ground, and let's say that this is a slope here. This doesn't help either. This doesn't have this is not the same as the dunes, but this has a unit at the top of a slope has a +1 bonus. There's no bonuses in the actual rules. This is, I don't know, bad translation or what, but there are no bonuses in melee. The problem with bonus is, are you talking about the, let's see, this is in melee, okay. Are you saying, actually units don't use melee values. So are you saying, what bonus? What bonus? Anyways, the French clearly has, it's, they get +1 to the die roll, which is a +1 DRM. That's bad translation, or not bad, that's sloppy translation, at least. But it's backwards. It's backwards again, right? Because if he's at the top of a slope and they're meleeing, okay, this is only in defense, so this unit is on the slope, up the slope. He's going to get a bonus of +1 in melee. That means in the defense. So that means he has to be defending. So he's attacking. This unit's attacking up the slope to get a +1. If that's a +1 die roll modifier, yeah, that's making it worse for the defender. That makes no sense. Makes no sense. Again, it's backwards. It should be -1. -1 would increase the severity of the losses for the attacker and decrease the severity of the losses for the defender. That is up slope. And I can go right down the list for all of the reasons to justify the defensive bonuses of being at a higher elevation. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I was hoping that I would talk this through and figure it out, but this is just not right. And by the way, all I would take is one simple but correct example of play to clear this all up. I looked. I haven't found one yet. I'll continue to look. I'm going to go online. I don't think a lot has been written online with these games, but I will look. I think I've exhausted what's been written in English. I will look to see what's been written in French and try to translate stuff for myself, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Again, just what was intended. I know I could go with a -1 DRM, but that is, I'm trying to think this through. That is, so that does lessen, okay, so let's go back to Dunes here. -1 on the fire die roll will lessen the severity of the fire. That's good. But when you go to melee, a -1, no, actually -1 works too in melee. because, oh yeah, that's how I already explained that the attacker should, yeah, they should take more losses, relatively speaking, because the defenders are more defended. Oh, but then you could say that the defenders less massed and concentrated. Yeah, I don't know about that. I want it to be right in every case, and I'm not sure that's right. Die modifiers in melee. I just don't know. Again, how is this missed?